Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody is doing well today. I need G Fuel, so one sec. Gonna have to skip this song because holy shit, that's a long song. Skip. All right. Okay, so yesterday the plan was to spend a fair bit of time on the AI and stuff. I didn't really do too much AI work, but I got a task list together. Figure that is a good enough thing to continue working on. All right. I think with the early game planned out for the Mongomen, this is probably the extent to which I would want to base layout unless I saw some obvious issues as well. So there's that. What's up, Vic? That used to be a big meme back in the day, man. I don't know what happened to it. Excuse me. It's kind of funny to me how these resource areas exist. Regardless of whether or not the players whose start locations are defining the resource areas are actually enabled. Although I guess I don't really know if that's true, but I would assume so. I think there's only 2 mineral onlys in the whole game. Yeah. So, I guess Heltrix, in addition to you actually, is now under quarantine. We're gonna have a real busy map craft coming up. Prepare yourselves. Alright, down here is the last one. Alright. I can delete. Well, I'll leave those there, I guess. Oh, I can delete that. I did mention I would probably want to have them seal some stuff up. I think everything is going to be fine. Just needs some time. Though with how much I'm coughing today, so far, I can use that as an excuse. Be like, sorry, I'm coughing a lot, can't come into work today. Could happen, you never know. Yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong. It's much more concerning that there are so many people who have panicked about it. The human aspect of it is much worse than any, like, danger from the disease. At least for me. Obviously, I can say that as a privileged... I have health privilege and youth privilege. Yeah, I work in a grocery store as a shopper. I shop orders from that people place online. And so I saw firsthand yesterday how insane shit was. I was supposed to be training people, but the person who was supposed to train was a no-show. So I wound up just picking up normal hours. Oh shit, I was supposed to do that. And I saw there was way too many people in the store. Thursdays are usually dead. So many people in the store. Toilet paper wiped. Eggs wiped. Milk wiped. Cans of, like, beans and stuff, all wiped. There was nothing. Meat was wiped, too. I hope they cook all the meat that they bought today. Or yesterday. And today. Today's also gonna be fucking stupid. I guess I technically have this. I can reuse. Almost started choking for real there. Holy shit. Would have been bad. Okay. So, refocusing for a moment. I was conceptualizing ways to improve tech paths for AI. Decision making. For when to make a change in their tech tree. Or, you know, a certain tech switch. I think what usually happens with my shit related to AI, right? I usually have a bunch of ideas for what to improve or what some kind of system, and I implement it in a very inefficient way that uses like a lot of multi-threads or whatever, and then from there on I try to like compress it into a better system. And that seems to be an effective way for me to learn stuff, is to get a very shitty prototype done and then be like, alright, how do I make this not shitty? and then go from there. That seems to be the way out for me. So I'm thinking about that right now. Well, yeah, I mean, the other legitimate concern is that they could be quarantined, but I don't really think quarantining is going to help. Like, it's going to help stop the spread to some degree, but I don't think the trade-offs are worthwhile. What's up, Alexander? Vika and I are just chatting about corona quarantines. You know, topic of the day. And I'm trying to think about how I would have an AI commit to a tech switch. I think the good thing is that since I've basically turned the attack blocks, like attacking is the most immediate thing where you know something is tech switched. Because they're attacking you with different forces, right? So I'm thinking the stupid way to do this, which is, again, I basically walked through my process of designing new techniques for AI, is where I write some really inefficient code, and then after that I fuck around with stuff, try to make it better. So I'm thinking that, what is the AI for this one? Have to open up some Hydra AI for the samplers. Look at Sienna. So, I'm thinking that the tech switch system, if we scroll down and we find the attack, so this add rand block checks to see if I've manually specified, using deaths, I've manually specified what attack I want them, what kind of composition I want them to use. So this is sort of like a manual override to the randomizer that randomly selects from the various strategies that are available. And the randomizer itself has biases towards whatever I want them to prioritize. So for example, add mech is a 1 in 2 chance. Add mix G is like a little bit higher than a 1 in 3 chance, a little bit more than that. And then I don't know what the remaining percentage of stuff would be because this doesn't even out. But there's a small chance for them to decide to go to add Hayrigan, which, if you don't know, is just massing only tanks, ghosts, firebats, and so some small amount of infantry and then a lot of fucking tanks is basically what that block is. So there's basically like a set of different compositions, strategies that the AI can use in terms of what they're bringing with them in their attack force. And the system comes equipped with a manual override and the ability to add more manual overrides should I want that to be the case. So if, for example, I wanted this player who has this attack code to jump into a new system, what I could do is, like, I could just detect if they have a starport, right? So in this case, I would be like, you know, it'd probably be better since I have to synchronize tech switching across multiple different factions or multiple different sections of code. You know, I'm looking at the AI is either going to be committing to Mass Factory in this area for a while and setting up some more external defenses while they expand. Basically, either they're going to take a quick third base and then populate this area with a lot of factories, or they're going to play a little bit more conservatively and build up more barracks in their main while also going for fast starport to try to drop. And they'll probably like take this island or whatever. Basic stuff like that. So their expansions, their build towns, or build thread for their main, and their attack threads all need to be synchronized to the same tech or opener or whatever you would call that. And I need to be able to dynamically set this in the middle of gameplay. So that's where we get a little fishy. What I've decided for now is I'm just going to have a breakpoint at a certain time frame where if by like the first 6 minutes of gameplay they've been successful in their early game ventures, they will take the more aggressive approach. And if they haven't, they can take the more conservative approach. And this also allows me to have some sort of lever there where I can say I can either raise the threshold or lower the threshold for what being successful means, or I can add a third one that's like halfway in between, like a third or fourth set of options that are somewhere in between success and failure in that context, and use that for additional wrinkles in the opener. Like maybe if I set the death in this case to 1 or 2, that would be great success for 1 and mild success for 2, and then 3 would be mild failure, 4 would be great failure. And if it's great failure, they turtle a little bit more. Maybe they're a little bit slower to expand. Maybe their attack thread adds a little bit of an extra delay between attacks. Stuff like that. Whereas the mild failure would be less reticent to go whole hog in that sense. Just like great success would be like, oh, I'm really going to just power into mass factories, so I'm actually going to delay my next expansion more so I can get more production structures and try to go for a push to kill the player immediately. Mild success would be, okay, I still need this base. You know, I'm not going to all in at this point. So I could do something like that as well. So leaving options open for future changes, because this is a project where I'm almost certainly writing first draft AI when I write AI for this project. You know, the first AI that I write for each map, or the first time I write an AI for a map, is not going to be the last time I write that same AI for that map, most likely. Now, maybe I don't need to completely overhaul everything and rewrite it entirely, but this is I'm conceiving of this as a first draft, and I'll mess around with it in game and see what happens from there. I don't even really need to cough, by the way. I'm just, for some reason, I have to clear my throat a lot. It's probably what I ate. I had peanut butter.
This goes out to every human on this planet. All over the world, people are listening to music like you're listening to music too, aren't you? But what we hear on the radio, what we see on the television, it's no music, it's just pop. And I want to tell you, I don't want to listen to this shit anymore. What I want to hear in the radio is metal, is punk rock, is classic rock, Beethoven.
This is boomer. This is actual boomer speech. Check it out.
Because we are buried in space.
Not sure his lungs were equipped for that one. But you know what? I say hats off to those boomers. least they have a message. I may not be able to relate to it, but they got it. Yeah, the flower thing I don't understand at all, I'll be honest. Free dumb. You know what I mean? So. Three bases. I'm glad because I'm using the ASC3 encoding. 3, by the way. Wow, that's a hidden 3. I never really thought about that 3. It's because I'm using the syntax highlighter for AI. It's just more pleasant for me to look at the darker text. And I'm using that here, so it's highlighting numbers. And of course, one of those is 3. The other one is 9, which is 3 times 3. And then the third 3 number is 5, which is like a cousin to 3. And then down here we've got 6 and 9, which are both multiples of 3. Which makes 5 numbers total, which is again a cousin of 3. I'm just saying, man. Numerology is just a slightly hidden simulation theory. $450 supply, by the way. I still can't believe. What was it that Sunspear Game Studio or something that they want to give you supply for building factories? Your production structures give you supply? I'm pretty sure I heard that. Somebody was posting that. It's probably Fagudo. Fagudo is always watching, always listening. He's got 10 streams playing at double speed right now. He's ready to screenshot your Discord chat message. Better watch the fuck out. I should get a sound clip of Jordan Peterson saying, "Look the fuck out." I don't know why that's really funny. But it is. Oh, I probably need more barracks over here, actually. Could you imagine anybody playing? Yeah, I think he's in rehab. I don't know. Nobody knows. I just want to imagine anybody popping in the Redux, the remake of Inconsummate, like what I'm doing right now. I'm making the remaking the game. The campaign. And they're like, this will be great. The last Inconsummate was pretty challenging. Can't wait to see what was changed here. And then they just get fucking tanked in like 5 minutes. Bye. Ah. That's my reaction. Raiders bonus space. I like bonus spaces. Oh shit. I don't even know where they're gonna go. So down here. What I want to know is... Well, I would like to know what I was going to say about what I want to know, but... Other than that... No, this is... much too much, I think. This... Oh, yeah, well, I set this up way earlier. That's probably why. I don't think that the bunker on the bridge really makes any sense there, but we'll see. So, I'm looking at... trying to conceive of whether or not I want to make any tech tree changes beyond the Hydra ones that are specific for these factions. I think, again, for the idea that like people are going to be first introduced to... Wait, what the fuck? Why do I have a command center up there? Anyway, I was trying to fly into the map. Looking at it from the perspective of somebody who's like never touched Hydra, they don't even really know about it, just coming in. I try to conceive of how... I mean, it's a tough balance, but I try to conceive of how players who are familiar with the tech trees, who are familiar with everything, basically returning players in theory, they've already went through and play it, will they still be able to get something of value out of the experience? Is it just going to be a one and done thing where you come in and you don't know what to expect and that's what makes it exciting, and then after that it's not as engaging to come in and replay? I mean, obviously some of that luster will naturally go away because your first impressions are very, very powerful. But it shouldn't completely lose all its luster, is what I'm thinking. So I try to conceive of how I'm going to make things valuable for return players, as well as how I'm going to obviously impact people who are just coming in and never played any of my content before, never touched an RTS custom campaign that actually makes them play the game or anything like that. No, I said it could be. It could be my last brew. I think I said it could be. If I didn't say could be, that's what I meant. Oh yeah, there's like 4 in total. Let me see. This stuff is public. I can show you on the Zabalba thing. So you have Inconsummate. And then you've got Bloodfaust is split into 2 acts. I'm still waiting on, obviously after Inconsummate's done, I'll recheck that. Then you've got, all these ones are kind of names in progress, right? Working titles, but you got Herald of the Flame, which is I guess the 3rd proper project, because Bloodfaust would be 2 acts. Apostasy, Sun Eater, and Zabalba, which is like the name of the whole thing. It's like where everything comes to a head, so. That's basically the gist of it anyway. I don't have any real documentation on what those are because as far as I've planned out the story, I still need to wait until I see what the final execution of some of this other stuff is. So there's definitely more planned. The question is whether or not Brood War can support all of the stuff that I need to do. I mean, if not, a lot of the ideas that I have will just be adapted to my own RTS anyway, so I don't view it as like an enormous loss. It's just more that obviously I won't have the luxury of relying on Blizzard lore. You know what? I'll grab the... Actually, I don't think this... I guess this doesn't really make any sense anymore. Right here. This was supposed to be a starting base for the Raiders. They were going to have a starting area town, but that decoration no longer makes sense, as it's no longer the case. Yeah, no, I can see where that would be the case. I have thought recently about how out there Hydra is. A lot of the ideas that I have, a lot of the original ideas are actually invested in those projects in terms of like the new tech tree changes. And the fact that it's so gameplay focused and I don't even think about the story ramifications of a lot of this stuff actually does help me in many ways. It helps me conceive of a world where like I'm making my own set of tech trees for my own game in that sense. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But in a world where I abandoned work on Inconsummate, I would also presumably be abandoning work on all other Brood War stuff. I mean, not Inconsummate, but Zabalba, the parent project. I intend to see this one out, but see this one through regardless of whether or not there's other projects out there that I'm going to attempt. But yeah, I'm not really sure how the pacing of my work is really going to evolve. Like my my workflow, if you will. Right. That's one of those things that definitely remains to be seen. But yeah, it's 9 maps for the Terran campaign and 10 for the other 2 for vanilla. So you're looking at 29 maps for vanilla. And then it's 8, 16. I think the count was like 50 something, like 57 or 56. Because you only have 16 for the first 2 campaigns of Brood War, but then you have 10 maps and the bonus mission, so 11 from the Zerg campaign. So that's 27. So 29 and 27, which is 56. So you'd be looking at 56 maps. Pretty close to 60. However, I think it's possible for me to make a map in like a week and a half to 2 weeks. It's just I don't have the time to dedicate towards that. And even if I did, like even imagine a world where actually I can dedicate enough time to make maps at that pace. It's still a pretty incredible effort required to make all the technical things happen. And that's where I don't have any capacity right now. Now, obviously, throughout this month, I'm going to be spending a lot of time on investigating programming and whatnot, but that can really only get you so far. So, that being said, the total number of maps for all of Xibalba is probably also around 60. Like the whole, all of the campaigns. It's probably up there. And that requires more planning and all that other stuff. So, that being said, still, it's if I end up spending more time on, I can see where you're coming from as far as like hoping that I focus my efforts on one project versus another one. I think I'm more invested in Xibalba, like all that other stuff. I think Hydra's been a super useful tech demo, like a super useful opportunity for me to practice my skills and hone them in that sense. So, oh yeah, I was going to modify the layouts of this because I removed all the ruins. Over here. I don't really think it needs to be modified too much. I also imagine the people who don't know that I'm not pre-placing all this stuff in the actual map. I'm just using it for AI or whatever. They just come in here and they're like, what the fuck? Yeah, or I could just postpone it indefinitely, yeah. It might end up becoming that because Brood War is its own mess of stuff, including a new race, the UED, that I definitely don't have. I can't foresee a future where I have enough time to get all the ideas that I have implemented. So that's definitely one of those things where it seems like it'll be a pipe dream. The objective, anyway, was to make vanilla Hydra and then wait a very long while before attempting Brood War. Even if I had ideas and wrote them down or whatever, I wouldn't really be acting on them. Just because of the fact that it's like, I know it's going to take a mammoth effort to actually complete Brood War. I mean, complete vanilla and Brood War, I guess, but obviously just vanilla by itself, that's a lot of effort. And it makes sense to take a step back and consider your options at that point. I'm not sure. I actually thought about that too. Is like, would I be interested in going back to it? I think if I... So, it's a bit of a different conversation. I can't know for sure. I would say, if I come back to Brood War, it's because I've failed to create an environment where all of the boxes are ticked and I really want to make more content in that environment. And I'm going back to Brood War not just to make content for whatever reason, but also because I am trying to see what's missing from my game compared to Brood War itself. So that would be like just me trying to figure out what I need to change, basically. What needs to be modified? What needs to be made better? So that when I have an urge to make an RTS project, my default is working within my own game, not starting up a Brood War design document, you know what I mean? So, I know it's not 100% the same, like an answer to the question, but that was more or less what I was, what my ideal was when I was thinking about that fairly recently. I mean, obviously, as a map maker, as a modder, a project creator, what I would love to see in the far future is being able to just do map craps in my own game and be like, yeah, here you go. I'm sure I'll still play Brood War from time to time for the sake of just because Brood War is a great game in terms of its multiplayer, in terms of its mechanics. But I would like to get to the point where my game is superior for what I'm looking for, regardless of whether or not other people agree, obviously. Like, great if they do, and if they don't, maybe I can learn something from them, but as far as what I'm looking for, I would like to see that be the reality. It be me working on, wanting to work on that game over Brood War, wanting to play that game over Brood War. I think if the measurement of success will be based on how well I'm able to convert my own, like myself into a player and content maker for that game. Well, I don't expect it to be a technically demanding thing, but you never know. I think a lot of it's going to come down to engine level stuff. There was an Unreal 4 plugin that I bookmarked a while ago that was meant for RTS. That is eventually going to be on the Unreal Marketplace, I think. I don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. I found it. Real-time strategy plugin for Unreal Engine 4, open source. Let's see. Some things are already in place, such as camera movement and bounds, initial unit placement, single and multi-unit selection, movement orders, stop orders, attack orders, health damage and healing, cooldown range, victory conditions, projectiles, unit production, tech research, resource gathering, flag of war. Completely working in multiplayer as well, has been fully exposed to scripting, enabling you to update UI and play animations and sounds. It's going to be added to the Unreal Marketplace for free. And they have some guides on how to use it as well, so I don't know what the performance is going to be like, but that is something that I can commit to keeping reasonable. And also remember, this is something that I plan on, like, I don't imagine it'll be done, ready to be played in any capacity for another, like, at least another year, and that's a super generous estimate. It's like the odds of me even being able to, I don't know. I'm able to work on it pretty much whenever, I guess, but we'll see what happens. So, hopefully by then, we have more understanding of what's missing. I can't wait until Iquare joins me in Unreal. He'll be like, wow, I don't have to write a bunch of fucking assembly hooks just to get a unit to do the behavior? And I'll say, yep. Man, that'll be the thing is, I'll be like, hey, Iquare, wanna help me figure out how to do this one thing in Unreal? And then he'll do that, and he'll be like, holy shit, I can do so much. And he'll be like, all right, I'm not working on Brood anymore, bye. That's what I expect to happen anyway. he'll get tired of working in Brood War, and he'll want to make his Project Overlord in Unreal instead. Would be a good bit. Selected 3 sprites. All right, I need to figure out what I'm writing in here. Yeah, we'd be writing everything in C++, it seems like. That plugin that I was just talking about is written in C++. Yeah, well, I mean, I intend to learn C++ at least, but the bigger issue is definitely having to deal with Rust. I do not want to learn Rust, but I have to for Brood War stuff. That's another reason to just jump into fucking Unreal and say bye. It's like, holy shit. Although, I guess if you really wanted to get crazy, I could just remake Starcraft. Just remake Starcraft in Unreal. And then I can work on Inconsummate there. Could you imagine that fucking reality? But we'll take it one step at a time. First up is FPS game. Yeah, you have to do your 4 clowns. Squad of clowns. It's the only way. Clown canoe. Yeah, I will. I already have messed around with Unreal a little bit, but I want to get a little bit more of an understanding. Of the, like, just how to work on stuff, pretty much. No, you're not distracting me, but have a good one anyway. Thanks for the chat. I'm sure I'll see you around. For sure. Yeah, I'll be posting when I'm going to stream that stuff later on. Probably later on this month, if I had to guess. I certainly hope so, anyway. All right. What else we got? Cool. You know, another thing that I've been thinking about regarding AI is I feel like we don't really have great tools at our disposal to tell the AI when it's appropriate to build something, or to check a number of contingencies, basically. Like, the only way to do that is to write basically what amounts to a hard-coded set of instructions. Like, you know, for example, if I wanted to go all the way up to my bunker thread for Sienna in Hydra's first Zerg mission, which is the script that we're looking at on the right over here. You know, say I want them to build a missile turret somewhere, but only if there's enough shit on the map to warrant that missile turret. So only if their ally or themselves do not have a base in between the estimated trajectory of enemy units and where that missile turret would be placed. Or only if they know that there's a spire in play. Or only if they've killed a number of mutalisks. Or something like that. Or only if they've lost missile turrets up until this point. Or some, you know, anything to do with that, basically. That's a situation where I feel like, you know, we should have some way to add a request similar to, like, player need, where it tells the AI, if you don't have anything, build this. There should be some sort of comparison that says, you know, build if, and that would be like the command name, and then the comparison would be arbitrary. It'd be like, you know, it could be if anything. If there's a, you know, combat between a unit and another unit, if there's, you know, a certain number of deaths accrued, or a certain number of kills, or like literally anything that we currently have for comparison, like time or number of resources. But it's just so asinine to have to basically, like, to work around this, you'd have to call a block that would then say, if this is the case, return. Like, wait until all these conditions are true, and then return to the where you had the call from. And then you would, you know, issue the AI a request. But that doesn't then tell them to remove the request or not rebuild it until those things are true again. So you have to do what I did here with a loop, where now what I'm doing, I'm waiting until it's true that well, this is, I think this is supposed to be command center or something, but I'm not sure why it's Nexus actually. What? Why is it Nexus? Well, I'll look at that later. But anyway, I'm waiting until these conditions are true, and when they are true, I'm issuing the request, waiting until the request is satisfied, and then removing the request, and then waiting until there's no structures or units in a specific location. And when I have all of those, like then jumping back up and checking the conditions again. So I would basically have to do that constantly. I would have to create a loop for every single request that I wanted to handle in this way. Right? And even then it's not perfect because the build and remove build and wait build and stuff, all of these things only work on a per town basis. So I'd probably have to create a town that does nothing but this. So that it would always have only one structure assigned to it or something, which would be asinine, obviously. But the bottom line is there's not really a good way to go about getting that thing done in this example. Like a comparison for this exact script or the base layouts that I'm putting down here for the Protoss, right? Now say this photon cannon, for example, I only want them to build that if they don't have this base. Or if they don't have this base and they've sighted enemy units in a certain area that's nearby. Or, you know, if they don't have the south base and they don't have an ally anymore because the raiders died. Like, basically I want to check a certain number of conditions again. And then if they all return to be true, right? Player does not have ally, player does not have base in the south, player finds enemy units nearby, then build a cannon. Now, I know it's super minutia, but I feel like we should have a better and more robust way of checking shit. And then making not only the initial request conditional, but also any attempt to rebuild that structure or any attempt to satisfy that request a second time. All consecutive attempts to satisfy a request should check the same conditions. And that's what player need does. Player need checks for a condition. Obviously the condition in this case is hard-coded into the command, but it checks if the current count of units is equal to 0, then I need to build one, or if the current count of units is less than the count assigned to me by the player need command. So player need 2 science facility. If I have 0 or 1 science facilities, I will build another science facility. If I have 0 science facilities, I'll build 2, most likely. So basically I'll just build them until I've satisfied the request. I wish that we had something like that in just a single command that didn't require an asinine amount of this, where you're creating entire loops and it only works in small contexts, or you're creating entire towns so that you can have it work anywhere you want. It just ends up being really silly. So hopefully we come away from this particular project and from other projects like it, like Hydra or whatever, with a little bit more of a more robust system for AI. Anyway, I'm gonna be right back. I gotta use the bathroom. Bye. All right. I have returned. Thank you for your patience. I think I slept wrong on my back or something. Normally I sleep on my side, but I think I fucked something up. I definitely fucked something up. Just sore in a very peculiar way. Like little micro movements. Even though it doesn't really feel like there's anything wrong. In the moment, it's like you find out that something's fucked up. So, if you see me jolt around a lot for seemingly no reason, that's what's going on. What's up, Ultralisks? Not for me, dude. It's already almost 11. I actually started 15 minutes late today. Well, an hour and 15 minutes late, really. But I've been trying to stream at 8 in the morning during weekdays instead of 9. How is the quarantine shit treating you? I think you said you guys escalated real quick, right? Compared to the rest of the world. Where there's like is there like a curfew or anything you've got to worry about? Kind of funny that you guys in my Discord server and stream chats are basically keeping me updated with world news. Get a first-hand account to what the fuck is going on. Bonk. Yeah, well, the mortality rate is definitely higher for those people. I'm more worried about what humans are going to do in their panic. Because we know that, like, it's been studied anyway. I'm pretty sure there's if there's not like an actual proof positive of this, there's at least a causal link that makes you think about it, where stress, just being stressed out, is an immunosuppressant. Like, it actually suppresses your immune system. Your body becomes physically affected in a, like, maliciously or whatever, like negatively affected when you are stressed out. That seems to be the case. So, bearing that in mind, it makes more sense, in my opinion, to spend time taking a load off, you know? Trying to chill out where possible. Basically, not flying into a panic. It is the only thing that seems to make sense. Well, he might have thought that everybody else was going to freak out and, you know, keep him in quarantine or whatever, but I think what they do is they give you... I know that if you're not positive, you get a 14-day quarantine or something, and then after that you're let out. But, yeah, I don't know, man. People obviously take things very differently. Right, yeah. As long as you're... I think as long as people are, like... reduce anything that is obviously bad for their health, like shitty food or smoking cigarettes or drinking excessively, like alcohol-wise. That's a good step towards just being healthier in general, but especially around now when people are worried about this stuff, it makes sense to relax. I just looked at my Slack for work. There's a line from the register. My store is big. There's a line from the register that goes all the way down to the dairy case. And the dairy is literally on the opposite side of the store from the register. It's like door, register, whole bunch of aisles, whole bunch of other departments, dairy. Dairy's at the fucking end. That's how many people are there. The dairy shelves are completely empty. They have no eggs. They have no milk. They have nothing. Ah, shit. What a mess. Oh boy. Okay. Would this campaign have the difficulty of Hydra or a remastered version of Inconsummate? Well, I would say probably Hydra, I would imagine. It'll be more like Hydra. Oops. Epic. What's up, Connor? Well, Inconsummate was difficult if you didn't know what to expect, if you didn't know what was going to go down, if you didn't have map knowledge, right? This new version of Inconsummate will have some things that are map-based, like the layout of the map. It'll have things that are map-based, like the certain tactics the AI uses, right? So there are going to be certain things that sort of resemble set pieces, but a lot of the reason why you needed map knowledge in the original was because of the pre-placed assets for the AI, right? So the inalienable advantages that the AI had over you, which would be stockpiles of resources, pre-placed units, that sort of thing. So I think that's pretty much, that's the biggest thing, I think. So if you compare that to Hydra, the AI have personalities, they have strategies, and I basically view the micro tactics, like by micro I don't mean them controlling their units, but I mean like small scale, very specific tactics that the AI will use from map to map. Like on one AI, the AI places his forward bunker here, and on one map the AI places his bunker here. On another map he places his bunker there. Like he's still placing a bunker, right? So the strategy is the same. It's just a very individual tactic of where exactly you should be placing it. The metagame of where you should be placing your shit in a specific map, that changes because the map changes. So even though some people will be tempted to look at, say, an AI bunker rushing you, or something else that's like non-standard and you don't expect from general play, cheese basically, or anything like that. They will be tempted to look at that and say that's like a set piece. That's something that you wouldn't expect. That's something that the AI won't do. That they only do on this map. But that's not the case, because the AI is a personality. And so, yes, you may only fight them for 1 or 2 missions, but when you do, they will be using aggressive early game tactics, such as bunker rushing. Or perhaps they will try to tank push you. Or perhaps they will rush to drop ships and drop tanks on areas behind your mineral line or something. Like, it's still the tactic. Like, it's the tactic that matters, in my opinion. So, or rather, it's the strategy that matters. It's the fact that it's a, the tactic changes based on the map or based on other characteristics like the rush distance between two players, the resources that are immediately at disposal, things that change from map to map, but are not just the terrain. It's also like characteristics of the map, where the resources are and stuff like that. Like, if there's no islands available on a map, then this AI obviously isn't going to lift the command center off and send it over, right? So in situations like that, it makes sense. So hopefully that explained what's going on there. Anyway. What the fuck? Oh boy. Alright, so since I have about an hour, well, less than that. I'm also thinking that maybe the location, rather than it being a random chance for the location of the Protoss, it could be more like a reaction, similar to the tech stuff. So, Connor, you might be interested in this kind of conversation. We were talking about this earlier this stream. I almost said the other day. Earlier this stream, I was trying to figure out how best to conceptualize writing code that changes the tech of a certain unit, or certain AI, rather. And so what I've decided for this particular map is to do breakpoints, depending on how the early attacks go. So I came up with a system where at first, you could implement it just as binary. Either the early aggression was successful, or the early aggression was unsuccessful. So if you've got success and failure as your two options, if success, then do X. Maybe expand faster, or build a lot of production structures in a forward position to reinforce your units faster, try to go for a push, an all-in maybe, whatever. If if failure, if it was not a success, then you play a bit more conservatively. You expand to a safer location. You run in and grab, whatever it is you feel like doing in that situation, right? That's my thought, anyways. The idea that you'd have, that as a metric of what the AI actually ends up doing. So successful would be, in this case, like their early move is to set up defenses in the middle of the map to try to get map control. So they more or less will they will attempt to go for example, the high ground or low ground. That's like probably a random chance as their first approach, and then they'll try to fill in the remaining areas, like over here by the bridge, and eventually down here across the bridge on the right. They're not going to worry too much about the left side because it's mostly Protoss territory, but you get the gist of it just from that. Like their attempt is to try and secure their area, but also to try and box the player in somewhat. And this coincides with them eventually building defenses for the reinforcement Protoss. So if they're successful, the defenses that they end up building are going to be more closer to the player's base, right? They're going to build like over here in the mid left. They're going to build in the top left as well. They're going to try to set up areas of influence where they are guaranteeing that their AI ally can land, make landfall safely and stuff like that. So I think that's just by itself, it's an interesting approach to the situation, just because of the fact that they don't have to worry as much about, like there's a response there to the player's performance and what the player does. So if they set up these defenses, then they will set up more defenses and be more aggressive as well, and expand faster or whatever. If they're unsuccessful at keeping these defenses up in the first few minutes of the game, because this escalates pretty quickly, it's probably going to be like, it would check this stuff around 6 or 7 minutes into the game. So I'm keeping the times vague because I don't actually know what the end result is going to be. I'm going to need some testing. But the idea is that this is sort of the game plan of the AI. If they're not successful at keeping the structures up, as in they have no bunkers left or very few men over there in that situation, it's presumed that they probably won't be able to be successful at keeping that post. Or at least it wasn't a complete success either way. That would dictate that they would then expand more conservatively, maybe tech up more quickly to try and, or rather than tech up quickly, which they might do it in a more aggressive standpoint, they will try to slap down some production structures that will, like factories or whatever, so that they can set up some defensive tank positions and stuff like that. Now, the other idea that I had was actually to make this a sort of gradient, where you have success and failure is very binary, but what if you have 1 through 5 as a metric? And so the numbers would be setting a death, which would basically just be a switch that would tell the AI what to do. So if it's set to 1, it means that they couldn't have asked for a better opener. The player could not do anything to stop them. All of their structures are up, and they've expanded successfully, and everything else that you would check is going swimmingly for the AI. So they're going to be as carefree as possible in the next opener. They're going to be as aggressive as possible. They're going to try to all in on the player, and they probably won't even bother setting up defenses for their ally because they think that they can win by themselves. It's like that's what 1 means. That's what great success means. 2 would be like, all right, it didn't go. It's not the ideal scenario, so we are going to call in the defenses for our AI ally, but we still have the structures up. It's just that maybe they stymied our expansion, or we have one or the other. We either kept our expansion alive, or we kept our forward defenses alive, or some combination thereof, where like one of them is in a little bit of a shambles, but we're able to fix it up. So we're still going to be active in the early game. We're still going to be proactive in the next couple of minutes. It's just that we're going to be trying to expand, like a more economic approach, while also setting up defenses for our AI ally to stop them from getting run over. In theory, if the player diverts their attention. The number 3, because 3 would be something like, all right, we've totally lost one of those to either our expansion or our defense. We're going to expand conservatively. we are still going to attempt to defend our ally, but we're going to do it a little bit slower. So it'll be more like we're reinforcing our ally than we're proactively placing defenses in front of their bases. We're going to be placing some stuff over there, but it'll be after they've already started to set up in some way. 4 would be we're completely abandoning our AI ally because we need to just damage control on ourselves. We've lost both our, forward base and our expansion. And we absolutely need to bunker down, expand again in a safer location, and see what we can do to do damage control. 5 is we are losing shit in our main and we've lost everything else. So let's just we're not even going to bother expanding again until we've secured our own grounds. Maximum delay on expansions. Wait until we've got everything in order. That sort of thing. So now you've got some ideas. I'm delaying attacks, expansions, tech ups to greater or lesser extents depending on how well the early game goes. And so I'm trying to devise some sort of system that I can use to actually execute that idea. So hopefully that's able to be done in this context. Basically a flowchart so that the AI is a bit it adapts not crazy to your inputs, but it's more like the AI adapts to what you're doing. So again, the first draft of this system would probably just be: do we have our defenses? Yes. Okay, we're good. Did we lose our defenses? Yes. Okay, let's go back and expand conservatively and play it a little bit slower. Stuff like that, is what I expect it to be anyway. So I guess we can get started with that. Well, the Protoss aren't going to be there from the first frame. The Protoss arrive about 6 minutes into the game, which is why the tech switch or adaptation would that's when the adaptation would come in, is when the Protoss arrive. Or it would probably maybe the Protoss come in at 7 minutes or something, and then so the 6 minute mark is where the Terrans decide: are we setting up forward defenses before the Protoss arrive, or are we doing it later, or are we not doing it at all? So you have a flowchart of certain things that you can do, basically. Maybe it would actually be useful for me to design a flowchart. All right, I have flowchart software. Check me out. This is dumb. All right, hold on. This seems like a Google Drive web app or something ridiculous. Alright, so this is... Now this is some shit, man. Holy moly. Alright, so we have... Oh shit. Hold on, I might not be working today. Here's hoping. I'm trying to think of like what... I don't know if visualizing it in this way is actually going to be useful. This is sort of an experiment unto itself, but I like the idea of documenting it in that sense. Be a nice way to do it. Oh, I see why you would even want to do that. Thank you. Let's say try to get a good setup here for Now we're really getting in the weeds for no reason. Alright, let's axe these. What would I even want to do in this context? So we'll say... We'll just create a new category for this opening move thing to go into, and we'll say... early game. Okay. And we'll say... It's all the way to the other side. We probably have to add a couple of other contingencies for each one, though. But we'll get, like, the rough draft done anyway. Yeah, this +1 shit isn't gonna work. I was thinking of like adding a death for every successful move and subtracting one for every unsuccessful one. I wonder if really making it so that one high ground, like the high ground or low ground one, would be worth each one or something. What's up, Iquare? I'm trying to visualize the AI stuff, the AI early game, if you know what I mean. But it's becoming quickly becoming goofier than I thought it would be. Flow charts. All right. See you later, Connor. He probably left a long time ago. Man, I do not have to work today, so check me out. So what are you up to today, iQuare? Oh, you were working on the Graft Query parts. Oh, I forget. Did I, Yeah, it looks like I did not retire the themes for Full Toilet. So I've got to go do those. Has the coronavirus hit where you are in the Ukraine, iQuare? Have you guys been plunged into an insane buy all the toilet paper tismatictism?
full. Poverty. Cruelty. Unnecessary violence. I understand human emotions, though I do not feel them myself.
I'm actually not sure about my specific town. I probably had it because I work in. My mother works at Uber, so she's like always driving around in like airports and stuff, you know, picking up people. I work in a grocery store. I'm handling a bunch of shit that came from who knows where. We all probably had it at various points. It's not that serious for healthy people, generally speaking. And while I'm not incredibly healthy, damn sight better than the average American, probably. So. Let's see. I'll search in my state. There's over 100 in this state alone, but I don't know if there are any in my... And those are just confirmed, obviously. State. I mean, the CDC numbers are super low. Yeah, Michael's AI, and then after that, I'll write the Protoss AI.
What he says, or what he delivers.
just love the look of the locks. You call them fashion dreads. They wear the locks because it looks good. They didn't wear it because of the concept of Rastafari. So they will be mistaken for a Rastafarian, but you really know a Rastafarian.
So now what I'm thinking is we have a situation where I'm kind of turning it into a numerical thing, which I think is good in theory. So we have the statistic that basically tells, I mean, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but it's okay to start out with, and then we can look at the deficiencies and see what needs to be changed. Rather than throw out anything that looks like a deficiency, maybe what we could do is like we could weigh things differently. So instead of everything giving +1, maybe the expansion is +2, and the defenses are +1, and also like -2. It'll end up being inverted, where the deaths will be like, because deaths can't be negative. So I might have to set the death. Well, no, that would be really annoying to do. But I was gonna say like set it to 100 or something, and then plus minus from there. But what we could also do at some point is for negatives we would actually be adding, and so the lower the number, the closer they are to peak performance. And then I guess it doesn't really matter. Like the idea is if you're at 0, that is the best case scenario. So it doesn't really matter if we're subtracting too much. And the worst case scenario can have a cap of like 5. So even if somehow you're above 5, it's like it doesn't really matter, because at that point you're already doing the worst case scenario thing. So I think that's probably works out. What's up, Veek? Well, okay, so I've had to like walk through this system a few times now. Trying to think of the most succinct way to explain it. All right. So +1 and -1 are actually inverted, but it's just so that I can clearly understand what's positive and what's negative. But there's going to be a death. That death will receive bonuses, or basically the value of that death dictates the actions that the AI takes. That death is set and modified in a bunch of different ways, but it synchronizes actions across certain breakpoints of time. So the longer the game goes on, the more divergent the paths can get in theory. The more frequently this death will be checked, and thus the updates matter more. In the early game, this AI seeks to build some defenses in the middle of the map to try to start boxing the player in and also eliminating threats, or at least knowing of threats, before they get to their main base and can really start to hamper them from one of the biggest and easiest avenues to get to the player, this particular AI's base from. So that's why they're taking this middle area. Should they be successful, there will be a subtraction of the death, because that was a positive thing. So if they're unsuccessful, it'll be added. If the death is at 0, that is the best case scenario. The AI has not been thwarted in anything that it has tried to do, and it will continue on its most aggressive, most active, proactive path, which will eventually culminate in like an all-in with like 3 factories into a bunch of tanks and stuff, or whatever the case may be. If the AI is not successful, the death will go higher. The higher the death, up to a cap of probably around like 5 right now is what I'm thinking is all I need in terms of actually modifying the AI's logic. But the death will basically, the higher the death, the more conservative and defensive the AI plays. So certain behaviors will only come out if the AI has been stymied or made to play more conservatively in order to find success. Obviously, this is all within the personality of the AI. But my thought process is that we should be, like, obviously in keeping with the personality of the AI, we should be keeping track of what ends up happening and when it's happening and all that other stuff. So that is more or less the rundown. So what I've got here is, they'll succeed. They'll success. So it probably should be something more like this. So basically, I'm trying to figure out what specific actions the AI will take under certain circumstances. So in the early game, what it's going to do is it's going to have certain checks for these deaths, more or less. Wow. I don't know what's going on in this also. Everything's messed up. I guess that would be like the 5 o'clock. It's like 4.5, but whatever. All right. So I'll be right back, and then I think I'm just going to hop into actually writing this AI, and we'll see what I can add to this later on, because I feel like I've brick-walled here. But BRB. All right. Hi. What the fuck? It never ceases to amaze me how headphones can just fly into the most bizarre nooks and crannies. I don't know what the fuck is happening outside. Must be the zombie attack. Are you guys ready for an insane amount of base layouts? What I actually think I'm going to do here is the main will just be this segment of stuff on the high ground where you have... It looks like... Oh, no, I think I'm going to grab this one as well. This low ground starport will be part of the main. But all the rest of it is going to be isolated to... Like, this is all expansion. This is going to be its own create script thing. This is going to be its own create script thing right here. This is going to be an expansion. This will be its own town. This will be its own town. This will be its own town. And this will be its own town. So we're going to be relying on a lot of towns, individual towns. We'll see what else happens later. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Looks like 19 depots. Eight barracks. Was it only 2 armories here? I think the third one was going to show up later, yeah. I hope I don't end up having to base layout every single expansion like a complete lunatic. That sure would be shit. You know, it's going to be a real... It's kind of funny, though, honestly, that... I keep forgetting this, but Zerg is my worst race. I mean, maybe I play decently with it, but I find that Zerg is the least fun race for me to play. And yet here I am, making a Zerg campaign. That was also my first campaign, so I'm remaking my first campaign that's a Zerg campaign. Just after releasing a Zerg map in Hydra. Quite the ironic set of circumstances, man. Well, I usually have some idea of what I want out of the outline, but it doesn't really get tested until I get into the editor and mess around. A lot of it just comes from that. Okay. Cool. So that's that. Since we're balancing so much shit here, like, I'm trying to figure out trying to juggle in my head what we got here, right? We need to space out the requests so that they are building their main in a timely manner, but they're not shirking the other requests that they may get. So it's in a tough spot because it basically needs to adapt. It's already going to adapt to their resource quotas and like what they have as far as money is concerned. But it also needs to not be too over the top. Like, I'm more so worried about excessive requests. Way more worried about that than I am worried about requests that, like, it being too slow or whatever. I'm also thinking about the placement of missile turrets and shit in ways that I had not before. Certainly I'm not going to bother trying to min-max every single little bit of money out of the AI so that they're all placed in excellent and A-plus locations, but you never know, man. Yeah, never know what's possible. All right. Whew. Try not to get too carried away here. I almost want to write out all of the contingencies before writing the main thing. I don't know if that's really advisable, though. Like, it might make more sense to go through and say, hey, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna... This is the main thread. This is our main protocol. Like, what are we gonna do from here? I don't know. It seems like that might be more reasonable, but difficult to say for sure. Okay. Well, definitely found it difficult to focus today, man. I'll try to get some more work done later on today on this. But since I have the day off unexpectedly, I might do a completely different kind of stream later. I might stream myself trying to work with Unreal in like a couple hours. But we did make some progress on the AI, and we did some base layouts, and we filled this out, and we experimented with this draw.io shit that is probably too complicated, too convoluted. Bunker thread's done. Might need to adjust some things, of course. All first draft shit. Even the base layouts are technically, you know, first draft, right? I might be modifying some stuff. For the... I think my next real big objective is going to be trying to figure out how to assemble a strong set of like well, at least some sort of system that seems like on paper it should work for the purpose of keeping track of, I guess, really basic stuff like whether or not the AI is expanding or how things are going for the what the fuck? Basically, like keeping track of what the AI's status is. Basically, the death thing that I talked about several times in this stream will probably be what I do for that, but maybe I'll come up with a better idea later. We'll wait and see on that one. I do think that the idea makes sense. I guess one thing I am worried about is if they take the bottom left expansion in the early game, which is what I want them to do, this expansion down here, they take this one, it's gonna be a while before they end up grabbing factory space. But I think that's actually good in this context, because that means that they will have to, like, basically what they need to do if they end up getting pushed back, either losing that expansion or losing their shit up here, is they actually are going to take this base down here. Oh, I guess that's where that command center went. But they need to take the bottom right base, and if they take that base, like that's going to be their next expansion, basically. So that's their highest priority. Once they take that, they've got access to enough factories, to 6 factories, 4 of which have machine shops. They should be able to set that stuff up. And, you know, we'll figure stuff out from there. But one of the things I will experiment with is different resource spots. Like, not spots. I'm trying to think of a good term for that. I guess breakpoints. But like a threshold of 600 resources instead of 1,000. Like if you've got 600 minerals and gas, you need to build factories. Is like kind of the idea I was thinking of. 600 minerals in the bank, build another barracks. Like lowering it from 1,000 and 900 and wherever it was before in the other scripts. So we'll see that more often from the AI. But maybe I can then increase the delay between checking it, or I think the delay is probably fine. I think the delay is like 2.5 minutes or 1.5 minutes, or I don't remember how long the delay actually is. Might only be 30 seconds. But they will have had time to actually plant the structure down. And that will reduce their immediate amount of money. And then, you know, maybe I should wait until they finish the structure. So maybe I could increase the wait from 30 seconds to 1 minute, which should be enough time for them to finish any structure that they're building. At that point, we could then look at it and say, have you already started to put this to use? Or do you still have a lot of money? If you do still have a lot of money, start, you know, spending more. So there'll be some experimentation. A lot of this stuff is experimentation. But I feel pretty confident with the idea that the AI is going to adapt somewhat to the early game. They're going to have their personality, but their early moves will... I don't know, I just think that'll serve to have players, you know, encourage replay value, I guess. It will also, generally speaking, serve to feel more believable. 'Cause what would a player do in a situation like this if they had Michael's personality? So we'll see. I want to add that complexity, but actually have it mean something. I think it can mean something. I think it can mean something really good, like very positive. But that burden of proof is on me in that situation. So we will wait and see. And yeah, he will use that build. I think every AI will use that build, to be completely honest with you. Okay. Well, anyway. That'll do it for me today. I shall return later on for a stream. If I'm not doing the Unreal stream that I spitballed, I will just end up... I'll stream something. I don't know. I'll figure something out. I might just spend the time working on a video, I guess. But we'll see what's up. Thanks for joining me. Big kisses. Mwah.